Hello and welcome to First Issues Weekly, the compilation of the weekly comic review show First Issues Now. Every day you can check out the newest First Issues released over on First Issues Now or the weekly in a bunch like this, here on this channel. I'm AJ Carey, the comic archivist, and these are the comics released for the week of July 23rd, 2025. And hey, I got it all out before New Comic Book Day, so kings to me. The fact that right on the cover it says Part 4 of the Bad Moon Rising story doesn't really fill me with a positive feeling, but hey, it is a first issue, even if it's Part 4. This is The Flash, Bad Moon Rising Special Number 1, written by Alex Paknadel, drawn by Daniel Bayliss, colors by Matt Herms, and letters by Buddy Bedoin. Okay, so apparently in the current Flash books, Eclipso is back and is now influencing villains again. And this is a focus on the Shade, a villain who I always thought was pretty cool, as he is being existentially creepy in an alleyway with a mugger. But then Starman shows up looking a lot more boy bandy than the last time I saw Mikhail. Mikhail is always how I pronounced it. So then, with a quick snap from the darkness, goes to his love, Hope. And you know what? I don't want to give a premise. The premise is that the Shade has a complicated history with the world, time, and the new Eclipto story is pretty awesome, it looks like. Although I don't know if the new twist to the Shade is a retcon, a lie, or just me not really being a Flash reader. So I'm going to have to preface this with I have the most limited view of the Shade that any casual Flash reader probably has. I think I've seen him pop up here and there in event comics. I always thought he was cool with drip for days, but holy hell, is this just brilliant. It's weird. Last week I was really surprised with an Abomination one-shot that only barely tied in with the Not Underworlds Unleashed plot over there at Marvel. And now I'm absolutely floored by what is essentially a Shade one-shot tied in with the new version of the Eclipso Darkness Within story. And yes, I still have my copy of that with the Heart of Darkness shard on the cover and everything, but not the point. The point is that this is great. No, I have no idea what's really going on, like why the rogues are on whatever planet they're on. I want to say it's the dark side of the moon, maybe? Or when the Flash learned how to make semi-solid clones of himself. But this isn't really about that story outright, or even the Flash. This is wholeheartedly a character study on the Shade, and it really goes hard into who he is and why he's so complicated when there's even a little focus on him. He's not just a bad guy, but then again, none of Flash's rogues really are when there's a competent writer involved with them. And Paknadel, of course I had to try mispronouncing his name a second time, brings an oddly British indie comic feel to this. Granted, I think that could also be how expertly Bayliss and Herms mixes feel stark and loose, not unlike a Shadow, in its art scheme. Now, I am really hoping that this is a prelude to Paknadel becoming the main Flash writer after Spurrier, or even better, a brand new Starman book. Come on. So my verdict for this, if it wasn't clear, is that this is honestly a buy it. Buy it means it is definitely worth reading, and worth owning a hard copy of. I'd even say that it's probably a great point to go, wait, I really need to read this story, that's what's going on over in The Flash. And even last year, I did cover the start of this volume of Flash, and it was worth being on a pull list, so it may technically be on the collected side of things, in a weird, nebulous void. Speaking of Cy Spurrier, kind of, that makes more sense in the first issue's weekly compilation of these, rather than the individual episode. He's got a nice little indie book out now with The Voice Said Kill Number 1, written by Cy Spurrier, art by Vanessa Del Rey, colors by John Starr, and letters by Hassan Otsman El-Hao. Oh, and a graphic designer with Emma Price. You know what, I'm just going to go with the back of the book premise on this. The Louisiana Bayou. Gator poachers prowl through fever dream forest. A moonshine matriarch sneers with a lonesome park ranger cradles her belly. And in the swamp, a hateful man feasts on fungus and prepares for war. Now, before I want to say anything, that description plus the cover of this is why I went into this book really, really intrigued. And at the time, I didn't know that it was only a 4-issue story, but I am kind of really glad it is, because this is a talkie. Spurrier is a great writer when it comes to dialogue and how it builds the characters up. Actions are also good, but there's about 20 pages that is just talking in this, and I know it might annoy some of my friends who are kind of there for action, big explosions. But I'm here for a good back and forth, and goddamn can Spurrier hit the nail perfectly to make it an engaging back and forth. These sorts of comics are hard to give a real verdict for, though. On a personal level, it is absolutely worthy of a buy now for the fantastic art direction that gives it a dark, broody, and almost oppressively anxious charcoal expressionism to it, which also accentuates every scene to that fever dream status. On the other hand, it is a part 1 that really only hits the inciting incident at the end, so it may not be a good single issues buy, especially for those that like action beats in their sequential art. So my official verdict is read it. With a small little caveat. Read it in this context at the very least means that it is absolutely worth reading and making the decision for yourself on if you like it and want to see more, or if it's not very what you like. However, the caveat is that on a personal level, I think it's absolutely going to be a buy it when it is collected in trades. All I know before going into this comic is that Vampirella is a property that I think I always say deserves collect it because of all the covers. For science, of course. I've got the cosplay cover personally for this issue of Vampirella Armageddon #1. Written by Tom Snegowski, art by Cooper Bell, colors by Omi Remelanti Jr., and letters by Jeff Eckleberry. One of those names I probably mispronounced. Vampirella and a really rockin' werewolf named Dagwood that I can not hear sound like Jawbone from Fantasy High series from Dimension 20 are on the trail to find some missing immigrants, and that becomes a problem. Oh, not for Dag, who takes on a couple coyote lycanthropes, but definitely for Vampirella, who gets to go after the main skull-mask-wearing evil guy who makes a glowing evil pentagram out of some people. However, Vampirella technically loses this fight as she gets hit hard with a diabolical Kamehameha and awakens in the deserts of hell. So I should definitely say that I mostly engage with Vampirella mainly on this show, or any of the past versions of this show still available on my YouTube. So I have a limited scope of the character, but boy howdy does it seem like every time I read her, I want to binge everything around her. Or at least most of the time. There are some exceptions. However, this is no different, that I really want to read more. See, over the decade of doing this and variants of first issues now, I always get the massive question about, well, what makes a first good issue? And it is kind of hard to explain. It's like asking what makes a good first chapter to a book. Should it feel like a chapter 1, or should it be its own story? Frankly, it should do both, to varying degrees depending on what you want your story to say. And this actually does both. Vampirella is unique and entertaining, the werewolf pal is fun and cool, the inciting incident of the real story is a fantastic hook to make you really intrigued about her being sent to hell. Hell, even the first couple of pages that do that flash forward bit thing that I usually bitch about actually acts as a great hook, if only for the fact that it starts with some really great narration and her stuck in a sandstorm with her skin being power sanded off. It is definitely an attention grabber. So, my verdict, I think it will always be what it usually is. Pull it. Pull it means that this is definitely deserving of being on your pull list to keep up with the story as it comes out. However, I'd also say that it's definitely worth a buy it, since damn Vampirella, and Dynamite in general, always has fantastic variant covers. The fact that 2 months ago I started working on a tabletop called Americana Arcanum has me happy that someone else also decided to be a dork about the name. This is Texarcanum #1, written by Christopher Monfay, I probably mispronounced that, illustrated by Miguel Martis, colors by Patricio Del Pesce, and lettered by Michael Heisler. The story begins with a trailer park exorcism, and it just gets better from there. Okay, that's not true. Actually, we get a really good exposition world setup about the Weird West and why there's creepy stuff happening in the dusty frontier of nowhere. However, it's not the great world building that gets to me, or the fact that I've always been a sucker for the Weird West. The moment I fell in love with this 4-part series is when we begin our tale with Avery Bell, where he's holding a literal haunted trailer in the air like a balloon, using a lasso from a one-legged bull rider soaked in piss-warm natty, blessed by a shotgun-wielding casino priest. It is that kind of book. So now imagine how gleeful I am when ultimately the premise is that Avery gets a call about 10 plagues in Texarcanum. Yes, I am in love. I know, it's part 104, so I shouldn't be ready to kiss it on the mouth or anything, but come on. It is a literal Rough Rider in a red pickup truck with a pentagram on the hood, with a magical tool roll at his hip instead of a gun, who gets drawn into a mystical blood feud between two families. Not to mention, the art is brilliant. It's the same artist for the cover, so that's what you're kind of getting throughout the entire book, and I love it. Also, there's a nice fun little random shot that everything supernatural looks like it's from Vancouver. This book was honestly made for me specifically. So, clearly the book's ignorable, right? No, come on. The answer is obviously a buy it. Buy it means that it should absolutely be on your pull list, both digitally so you have a reader, but definitely hard copy too. Now, I would say I wish there were more covers to justify buying it more times, and that would probably push it to the collected stage. But hey, there is always second printing potential if you go out and buy it too. Wait, who's writing this one? I have a feeling Godzilla's about to show massive tail for the scalies at home. This is Godzilla number 1, written by Tim Seeley, art by Nicola, I'm gonna mess this up, Simaseja, colors by Francesco Segala and Gloria Martinelli as assistant, with lettering and design by Nathan Wittick. So, long story short, G-Force America is a super team designed to fight kaiju, and they discover a new dude who can channel Heisei energy, which seems to be monster radiation. Although if you look it up on Google, it says yes nature or yes sex. Interesting. Basically, it begins with this dude joining the team after he gave a Detroit smash to Godzilla. It didn't beat him, but it definitely showed some gumption. So now he's on the team, and there's a nice little training scene that gets us a quick rundown of the members before Anguirus comes to attack Florida. Granted, he's only here for a bit of psychic, why are you so angry? So we can end on a stinger of a new kaiju named Lament, who can speak. I'll be honest, he kind of looks like a grimdark version of the weightlifting lobster from SpongeBob. Right, so anyone who just heard that summary will probably think that I'm both a dick, and that doesn't sound like a Godzilla book. And you're kind of right on both accounts, even if it's a little hurtful. See, IDW has a fantastic Godzilla comic series, past and present, and to the future. But the Godzilla brand is not as singular as a lot of people kind of assume it is or want it to be. It is most definitely a very loose notion after 70 years. Hell, this is even the first G-Force focused book, or Superhumans vs. Godzilla. I mean, is this less a Godzilla book than Starship Godzilla or Escape the Dead Zone? No, it's all Godzilla because after so damn long, Godzilla is a very weird brand because it's not even one shared universe. It's everything, everywhere, all at once, and I love it for that. Now to the actual comic book. It's good. I haven't really seen Tim Seeley write a lot of team books, but I actually kind of like how this one lays out. It's not the most complicated plot, but we get the characteristics of everyone on the team, some nice hinting at backstory, and even some nice backstory. And hey, we get a brand new kaiju, which is always a treat. It's good. The art, it definitely goes for more feelings over structure, which isn't bad to me. However, my 11-year-old saw me reading this, and he saw Godzilla looking like the chunkiest boy, and he was a bit turned off by it. I wasn't, though. I do think that vibe-based artwork is fantastic for the action that's meant to feel more grand and whoa than just technical, and this is how you beat Godzilla. I would probably be more annoyed if that art style didn't tighten up for the slower scenes, but it does, so it gets the best of both worlds. So out of all of that, what is even my verdict? Well, at the very barest level, I will say that this is a read it. But there is an asterisk attached. Read it means that it should absolutely at least get a digital buy so you can, Read it and decide for yourself. However, I would say by the sheer force of awesomeness, it is definitely worthy of a buy it, since it should also be on your pull list, but all the variant covers are sick as hell. Now, my personal favorite, though, is the Martin Simmons cover. That's the one I got physical. Sheer art. So technically, it is a collected on a personal, but on a professional level, at least read it, judge for yourself. It's a good book. Sometimes I am just intrigued by a cover and have no need to make a joke. I see what they're doing there. Yeah, that pun worked much better in the script. Anyways, let's talk about Look Into My Eyes, number 1. Words and art by Rubin, colors by Francesco Segala, and lettering by El Torres. Now, before I talk about the comic, I did not use the QR codes that are present in the comic to accentuate the story. From what a friend said when they did, they were actually really cool, and the little ARG feel really helped elevate that story. Now then, the story is Social Media Sucks. I know it's a story that always feels hollow, but hey, add some eldritch horror to it, and a conspiracy theory lean, and it makes up for what I think old people find trite and young people find played out. The plot is that a girl, Susie, goes missing after a hell of a party, like her nudes are leaked, some drunk thing I don't think gets explained happens, and even being shown leaving a bathroom with another man. It's basically if Degrassi threw all of its plots into a single girl who then vanished. Now all of this is public info because of a new social media app called Knock Knock, who has QR codes throughout the book that you too can follow. Now, while you do get all that school life drama, there is also a major plot about RJ Wynn, who keeps looking into the disappearance of Susie, needs to now switch from having a fanzine and printing it physically to being a podcast, which, boy, I feel that. Is that the most truncated way to phrase all of what happens in this book? Abso-fucking-lutely. Because it dives headfirst into being a show and tell on all the characters we're going to be involved with, both with the main A-plot being about the fanzine becoming a podcast, as well as a distrust for Canon Corp, the company that threw up a huge radar dish on their very diverse and eclectic island home, and also owned the Knock Knock app, the inner workings of the social drama with love interests and all the social messaging and everything like that. There was a lot thrown into this. Now, while I don't think the book is being trashed, I saw a lot of 3 out of 5 star reviews on League of Comic Geeks for this, saying that this was a slow burn and the art is the only reason that it wasn't dull. Now I'm going to agree and disagree here. I do actually think that the art is what makes this book an absolute treat visually. And while I will admit that it is a slow burn insofar as RJ Nguyen isn't battling a Wendigo by the end of the first issue, the writing is engaging if you want to engage with it. Similar to what I've said about a lot of indie books since restarting first issues now, there's no one way to make a comic. Not every supernatural high school show needs to be Buffy or episodic. So yes, while I get that some people may not like the slow burn, plenty does happen in the issue, even if it's not playing the stock mystery Pretty Little Liars game of how many twists can we put into a book. So I think the verdict is going to be a bit weak, but the answer is buy it. Buy it means that you should not only have a digital copy to read, but you should absolutely have a physical floppy to read too. This is a beautiful book that looks great on screen and on the page. Now, I'd also argue that it's absolutely worthy of being on your pull list, and you should really buy all the nice covers out there, but that's me spending way more than I will ever make on this show for pretty pictures. Wait, Oni Press is still doing the relaunch of the EC Comics line? And I wasn't invited? Well, fine. Don't worry, I will still have fun with Catacombs of Torment number 1. With 4 stories, so that's 4 creative teams, although Richard Starkings and Comic Craft's Tyler Smith did the lettering for all of them, so let's start with the first one. What's the Deal with Voodoo? Written by John Arcudi, art by Patrick Piazzalunga, and colors by Alessandro Santoro. So, our horror host, the Tormentor, opens our tale that sounds like a real bad stand-up line with, "Oh hey, an aging comedian bombing on stage. Excellent." Ralph Lesser is an old-school comedian who uses jokes that, I'll be honest, aren't as bad as they could be considering the time period they want to be, but he is in the middle of a college campus, so naturally, when he makes a stupid joke about a voodoo doll, there's a couple kids in the crowd who brought up that Haitian mystic culture has been weaponized to dismantle the black culture, man. Or when he makes a lewd joke about his powdered tiger schlong, then you get another batch of the same two people yelling about how trafficking of endangered animals is bad, actually. Naturally, that means he decides to try and clap back at the kids, but it sucks. You know, kind of like every 90s shot comedian does in the 2025s. He gets booed and heckled off stage, but honestly, that's generally what he wants. Like most shitposters and trolls, the fact that he's getting hate makes him really happy because it's just attention. However, later in his apartment, the two overly enthusiastic college kids come to yell at him some more about how shit the patriarchy is or whatever, before one of them shoves him for calling her sister. Ralph falls back, bashing his head against the end table, killing him. No, I'm not actually going to finish what happens in the story because you have to read the comic for the ending. It does have a couple neat twisty twists. Then there's Quintana Roo, written by Marguerite Bennett, art by Dan McDade, colors by Michelle Madsen. A bunch of rich kids are at a resort with one of them, Diane, being a little bit more accommodating to the local culture, or at least not wanting to be locked in the same hotel all the time. So these rich, drunk, college-age kids are trekking through the non-disclosed tropical rainforest. I'm then reminded that the current U.S. administration is moronic with the Gulf of America thing, so I'm happy that this has a very, very gruesome ending. No spoilers, but the land is not forgiving on vomiting on its flowers. Now, I want to say that's metaphorical, but... Next is Garden Variety, written by Matt Kent, art by David Leffam, and colors by Nick Filardi. Oh, we get a new horror host, the Gravedigger. Actually, I think he's the old one from Epitaphs. Anyways, he introduces us to the wonderful world of a chef who kills people to make the best mushrooms. I swear we've covered someone like that on Killing 15 Minutes before. And as always, there are some just desserts involved. Finally, it's a throwback originally published in Shock Suspense Stories #2. This is Halloween, originally written by William M. Gaines and Al Feldstein, art by Graham Ingalls, with colors restored by Michael Atiyah. I would give a summary of this, but this is classic old school, where a summary would be me reading you a short story that's like 3 pages long. And I do love me some compressed storytelling, especially when it ends with the greedy owner of an orphanage getting ahead. I guess you can say that he's now pretty bright. Ooh, one more. It's like the children hollowed out his head like a pumpkin and stuffed a candle in it. No, strike that last one. This is amazing, and I love it. Horror anthologies are my bread and butter, and it's even what actually started me working on the Comics Restoration Project way back in the day. Like 3 years ago. Oh my gosh. Well, that and needing a good copy of Daredevil Battles Hitler and wanting posters. Those are still technically available. But that's in the past. And the present is me enjoying this. I know if I don't say it, some people will either decry it being anti-woke because of the first story has asshole college kids who are socially minded to an extremely excessively annoying level. But on the other hand, I know there's going to be someone who calls it woke because the second story is a bunch of asshole college kids who aren't socially minded to an extremely annoying level. But on the other hand, yes, I have 3 hands, bite me, we have Garden Variety, which is just a classic foodie critique story. And then there's Halloween, which is don't be a douchebag to kids for money. I bring it up over in the then and now a lot, but comic books as a medium has always kind of touched on social issues, be it overt or subtextual. And the horror is always the best way to bring it out because you can go excessive with it. Yes, that is why a lot of conservative groups also had issues with comics back in the day and why seduction of the innocent happened. The CCA existed because people were like, let's behead the guy who runs the orphanage. So my verdict for this is short and sweet, even if the summary wasn't. Buy it. Buy it means that it is worth not just being added to your pull list so you can get a ghastly ghoulish treat every month, but also get it in physical copy because there is no better feeling to me than reading a horror comic in physical form. Maybe sex, but who has time for that? Fun little fact. The Sixth Gun, #1, was one of the first reviews I was ever paid to write. Even if it was a ghostwriting gig for a website that no longer exists, that $10 still means the world to me. Not the point. Anyways, this is The Sixth Gun, Battle for the Sixth, #1. Written by Cullen Bunn, illustrated by Brian Hurt, colored by Bill Crabtree, and lettered by Crank. So everything you know about the series doesn't matter. We're soft rebooting this. Well, sequelizing it. It's 30 years later and we have a new batch of good guys. Basically, this sets up the grand going adventure, while also setting up who the good guys are by way of the evil League of Evil, monologuing, and wanting them dead. However, the good guys fail, as evil gets the first of the 6 guns. Dun dun dun. Okay, so right off the bat, I want to say that I like the Weird West, if you couldn't tell from my last review of Texarcanum. And this is a more classic Western with the macabre than it is a modern with a twist, but it is still awesome in a different way. Now, I have seen people knock this for being front-loaded with introductions for the characters, since there is a solid 3 or 4 or 6 pages of introducing the good guys by way of the villain exposition, which also introduces the bad guys. But honestly, I think that front-loading helps out with the rest of the book, because now you know when Unega hops down looking like Snowbird with her tomahawk, you aren't going, "Oh, now who the blue blazes is that? Yes, that's what I think you all sound like. Kind of like Richard Nixon. Arroo." I could see it working better when this is in trade, since it is very much a setup for the rest of the adventures kind of story. It is an action-adventure comic through and through, so I can't say anything negative about the writing. There's also great dialogue and even better action beats, and a real draw into the story. The art for this book actually always kind of surprises me a little, because while it is definitely evolved a bit over the last 15 years, I also think that Brian Hurt nails the mix of like Mike Mignola's dark horror with a classic pulp feel, and yet never feels like it's trying for that. It does what it does, and it works so well. So, the verdict is, pull it. Pull it means it is absolutely deserving to be put onto your pull list so you can follow the story as it goes on. However, I would also like to point out that there is 15 years of The Sixth Gun out, so there's always a very big point to be made with that kind of backlog, which is, you should go and read those too. Yes, technically that means that this is a semi-collected, but definitely buy and trade form if you want to read the whole thing. Yes, that made sense to me in my head, I swear. Yes, I know this is an annual, but guess what? I want to talk about Space Ghost some more, and that's what I'm going to do. It is technically a #1. And yes, I do still owe Dave Papose the mega then and now that I was plotting last year. It's been a while. It's been a heck of a time. Bite me, and then let's talk about Space Ghost Annual #1. Written by David Papose, art by Jonathan Lau, colors by Andrew Dahlhaus, and letters by Taylor Esposito. With the Council of Doom seemingly defeated, our hero now faces a terrible new threat, one that strikes from beyond the 4th dimension. To have any hope of survival, Space Ghost and his crew must find a way to break the dominion of Tempest the Time Master. I put the solicit blurb up because I kinda hate how it sets things up. See, this annual is actually acting as a season finale, so you're getting the explosive ending to the first 12 issues of Space Ghost. Basically, Lord Evil enacts the big Ultima frequency, which controls everyone in the Council of Doom and the world, so Space Ghost, Jan, Jace have to save Blip from the evil machine, and then kick all sorts of ass along the way. That's the book, and that's also the first 6 words of the solicit. It doesn't even bring up that Anti-Man shows up as Jason Jan's grandfather, or the fact that Tempest only appears as a tease at the very end for the next season plot. It is a pretty weird solicit is what I mean. But anyways, none of that's the point. I just thought that was one of those, that rubbed me the wrong way. Dave Papose has been kicking all sorts of ass with Space Ghost and Captain Planet, although don't let him know that I am actually squealing really hard about Jimmy Palmiotti's Blue Falcon coming out next week. Although, yes, this is a freaking amazing and has been since the first issue, which hilariously I did actually cover in First Issues Now last year when I tried restarting this show, but the second week didn't air due to many technical issues, and then I was going to do a then and now to make up for it with a massive thing that also fell through. It is still on the books, though. So anyways, yes, this is an amazing finale to Season 1 of Space Ghost that you should have already read. But why is that? Well, firstly, because Lau and Dahlhaus knocks it out of the park with the art. It is an experience to see, not just in reading, and it captures the feel and vibe of this new universe so damn well. Although I will say that I think if I wasn't reading this digitally for the review, the Ultima font used when people were under control might be a little muddied. It is the smallest nitpick from a phenomenal letterer in a fantastic comic. Oh right, Dave Propo's writing also made Space Ghost one of the best books to read every month over this last year. He fills it with emotion, he fills it with grit, and more importantly, he fills it with hope to counteract that grit. Plus, I don't hate Blip. That's a shocker. So clearly, since I'm waiting for my shipment of variants to come in on this, my verdict is simple. Collect it. Collect it means that not only should this and future Space Ghost books be on your pull list digitally, but you should also be getting it in single-issue floppies. More than that, you should have all the back issues, and a ton of the variants are just spectacular, and you need to get them too. Get the thing in trade when it comes out. Everything. This is a get everything for it kind of book. And I would also say check out the Captain Planet run going on too. It is pretty damn good.
Hi, I'm Sam Rossi, and I'm the casual comic reader in the family. The comic archivist has graciously allowed me to pick one book from this week's first issue in a comic run. I listened to a lot of first issues on Batman, so this should be fun. Today's comic is from the week of July 23rd, 2025. Thundercats and Powerpuff Girls combine to have a crossover issue number 1. I picked Thundercats, Powerpuff Girls crossover issue 1. Now first, the acknowledgments of the wonderful artists. Writer, Paulina Ganshin? Oh, crap, you said it earlier.
Ganesho, I believe.
Ganesho. I will never be able to say half these names correctly. Please bear with me. It's hard. Artist Coleman Engel. Colorist Kendall Good. Letterer, because we here do believe that it's a form of art. Eckleberry. I realized I am not a Thundercats fan. Was never really one I know Lion-O, okay? Don't get me wrong, I love me some Powerpuff Girls with the original Cartoon Network run of it. So, that's me because, family-friendly programming is what Cartoon Network gave us. I could hear the voices of E.G. Daly and Tara Strong and Kathleen Carveni. Oh, fucking A.
Look at the word. Remember, you're hooked on phonics.
I could hear...
Let's look at the flashcards.
I could hear the voices of E.G. Daly, Tara Strong, and Kathleen Carvini. With not a single Thundercat has a voice in my head. Weird, right?
Snarf, snarf. Lion-O. He counts as a Thundercat.
Fine. Then okay, I know one Thundercat besides Lion-O.
Snarf.
Alright, so the plot. The Thundercats are captured by some invader that came out of a portal, and the Powerpuff Girls show up on a rocket ship to rescue, well, not Lion-O. It's a tiger, so maybe Tigra? AJ says it's Tigra, so we're going with that. The invader, then after Tigra gets rescued, the invader gives a hint about how the Lion-O, because I know that one, needs to be awake for his undoing. Okay, that works. Okay, after that, we see the unlucky quartet running towards Wooded area? They're on a yellow brick road, and they're following a crystal that Tigra's holding in his hand, running after, going, I can feel it, we just gotta find them!
Is that right?
Actually, yeah. Jaga shows up, and is no help. A village gets raided. Burbles change into something for Five Nights at Freddy's. And these things are supposed to be cute little teddy bears. They're not anymore. Well, unless you're Ezra. But that's a different story. Heroing is done, and they save the Burbles whilst finding out that the monster was actual Thundercats. The twins. Yeah, I don't know the twins' names. But the twins. Real quick, I know. So I enjoyed reading without knowing anything about the Thundercats. You can never go wrong with the Powerpuff Girls. The art does give the moving cartoon feel. I did feel lost without knowing some information. Like, why were they not flying? Where is their powers? It's an easy, quick read if you have no issue without knowing the full story. My pick is to continue to read the series. Read it. If you like this one, maybe issue 2 is going to help answer some of my questions.
I have questions.
Okay.
A couple suggestions.
It like running towards our enemy instead of away.
Thank you for realizing I was going for a Hamilton there. Anyways, point is, the art style. You said it was a moving cartoon. Does it feel like the Powerpuff Girls are in the more 80s stylized Thundercats world? Or is it more like they're in the cartoony Powerpuffy world? Because I don't know, is this...
It's not...
I'm assuming...
Pup Named Scooby-Doo kind of are
okay, I was about to say, it looks more like...
It's a mix between now-ish drawings and a Pup Named Scooby-Doo.
Okay. So it feels like even like Lionel and Tigra and all that still feel more in line with the Powerpuff Girls art style sort of a thing?
A little bit.
Okay, so it's based off Thundercats Roar. Oh, okay.
I was able to know who the Powerpuff Girls are.
Well, obviously.
So,
they're very...
And I could tell you Lionel.
Other than that, so you think it's a fun read?
I enjoyed the read, yes.
So it should go on people's pull list just so that they can read it?
Yes.
They don't need to own... were there any variant covers?
Hey, where can I figure that out?
Well, we go over here to League of Comic Geeks.
Okay.
Okay. And now you see right underneath the thing, it shows you all the variant covers. Or at least all the variant covers that users have put on. I've done this before where I've actually been the one to put up the variant covers, and then and then you got to go through a whole vetting process. It's not stupid. I was about to say it was stupid. It's not. It makes a lot of sense.
It does.
But anyways, those are all the variant covers.
Okay, so the variant covers happen to be 17.
Not how many. Is there any that you like? Like the Ken Hauser one,
Oh, yeah,
I think.
the black and white Ken Hauser one was really nice. I like that one. Let's see. Kind of dig that one.
That's the colored version of the Ken Hauser one.
Oh. I gotta admit, that kind of looks banging in color.
I know. That's actually probably the cover when we get this. If I get this physical, that'd be the one I'd go for.
Yeah, I have to agree with that one.
So, I'm actually going to do something that since... I'm going to tell you, because here's how my grading system works. Okay, ignore it means it is not worth your... Actually, technically, there is a 0 out of 5 star rating. I use air quotes for stars. 0 is burn it. That is when it is so bad. It is not just ignore it. That is a actively hate it.
Okay.
Like Mary Jane Watson being Venom. That's the current... Yeah, that's our current... Don't look at me like that. That's what's happening in the fucking comics right now. I'm mostly kidding. It's not burnable. If it's for you, that's fine. Anyways, there's burn it.
Yep.
Ignore it.
Yep.
Ignore it is kind of obvious.
Yep.
It's ignorable. Read it generally means buy a digital copy of it. It is worth reading.
Right.
But does not necessarily need to go towards a collection or something super.
Right.
Buy it means that you should have it on your pull list, or either digitally or physically. Physically is usually the one I like going for to differentiate between read it and buy it.
Okay.
Because buy it is like this. You know what I mean? You thought it was a good read.
Yeah.
You actually say, hey, everyone, add it to your pull list.
Yes.
And now seeing these covers, I would say buy it. There's probably a variant cover you enjoy.
Yes, I will agree with that because...
Like the other one there that was the Thundercats logo.
Yeah.
With the Powerpuff Girls, like that one?
That one. That's the one I thought was the only cover available.
Well, it's a good cover. But, and then there is Collected is the top tier. What are you giggling at?
I found where I could have just looked at who the character is.
Thank you, League of Comic Geeks, for helping this casual, filthy casual understand Tigra is Tigra.
You know, I did this really well without swearing.
Oh, that reminds me. Wily Kit and Wily Cat. You didn't know...
Those are the twins.
Yeah. I knew that. I was going to say Vex and Vax, but I've been watching a lot of Vox Machina.
It's okay because...
And then I was going to say Jan and Jace because I just covered the Space Ghost, but I know that's also wrong.
Well, once you said it, my brain went... That's why I'm like, the twins? Because that made sense.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. So, how do I start to end these, brother?
I don't know how to end these, really, so... Say, I'm Sam Rossi, the casual comicist.
Comicist? Is it a real word?
I doubt it.
Why do we have to make up words in this family?
Mostly because I'm the comic archivist, and that makes you the casual comicist.
I'm Sam Rossi. Later, y'all.
With all of that, though, maybe I was wrong, or maybe I missed a comic worth talking about. Let me know on the YouTube channel version of this if you're listening on or on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, or on social media at The Comic Archivist on Facebook, on Twitter at AJC_doesitall, and even on Blue Sky at AJC does it all without any underscore. I'm always open to being told how wrong I am about current mainstream and indie books alike. Don't forget to like, share, follow, subscribe, and all the other stuff that I'm being told I need to say to keep this show going again. Let's see if we can at least do better than last time. More than anything, though, remember, stay golden, Inklings.